Okay, Ken has spoken about how the first time he saw a comic book. When was the first time you guys knew of the character in the comics?
I was probably in middle school because my brothers always read comic books, but more so X-Men and Spider-Man and that sort of thing. I had heard about Thor and I'd read a few, but it was something I literally had to sit down and go, okay, no, I read this when I was younger. And then I revisited it, of course, when I got the role, very happily so.
And yourself, Tom?
I had this, like, do you know what top trumps are?
I don't know.
Basically, like they're kind of like trading cards, but you can get them for lots of different things. It could be like for racing cars or motorbikes or fighter planes or soccer players. And I had the Marvel superhero top trumps, where they have all the characters of the Marvel universe, and each card has a picture and a list of their like vital statistics, their height, weight, superpowers, intelligence and stuff.
Yeah.
And then you kind of like, you're competing against your friends. And so Thor and Loki were in there. They were in the deck. So that's my first encounter with those two.
So your scenes, particularly you two, were set mainly in Asgard, and it's
Yeah.
a very CGI-heavy environment. What's it like working with that type of computer graphics?
Well, first I would say is,
Yeah.
it's all about imagination and trying to paint the picture in your mind's eye. But also we did all the interiors in Asgard were built sets. These incredible anything you see that's inside, like the throne room or the healing room or Heimdall's observatory or Odin's bedchamber. Those were all built by Bo Welch, our production designer.
Incredible.
Of shining bronze and gold, and they do so much of the work for you in lots of ways. Do you want to talk about a little about green screen?
Oh, yes. Well, that was fun. A lot of times, when we were fighting a beast or something, it would be literally a little green piece of paper on a stick bouncing around, and somebody's at the bottom trying to make it look, like it's walking or something, and then you just crack up laughing, and then you have to, okay, get with it, and then you do it. But it was great because Ken really narrated everything that we did, because the six of us were together and it couldn't be awkward or off. We all had to respond at the same time to the same, in the same direction. And so Ken, with his theatrical booming voice and his personality, would just kind of narrate what we were going through.
Yeah.
And so you really could see it. I mean, he really painted a perfect picture of what was going on. So I think without him, I probably would have been a tad bit lost at first.
Yeah.
It's a real skill, actually, acting with the green screen, because there is no external stimulus, and that's really the holy grail of acting, is you want to do something spontaneous, but if you've got nothing to respond to, then you're kind of cooking it up in your own mind.
And everybody's different, so what I would imagine the Beast would look like is not what he would imagine. So, and we all
Your
had to
Beast
sort
is
of
much
imagine.
scarier than mine.
I know.
But it was really fun though, and Ken really was tremendous at that. He sort of attacked it in a really imaginative way. So and one example would be on Jotunheim, the planet of the frost giants. We were all walking along the set, which was sort of a recreated icebergs, and the rest was green screen. And he had a microphone as the camera was rolling, and he'd say, "You're walking through an ice plain, and to your left is a tower of ice that's crumbling in front of you. To your right is a shadows out of which frost giants could emerge at any time. You're absolutely terrified. You're freezing cold. You're excited. Just ahead of you is a plaza. So all of us are kind
incredible.
of and you need that. You do need that help. Actually, Natalie Portman is on record, I think, saying how amazing she thought Ken was at green screen, and that actors now should almost have classes in it, because there's so much that we're required to do. It's a different skill.
Tom, in regards to villains, a lot of actors, when they play villains, they say they tap into something that they like about the character or they find relatable. What was it that you found within Loki that you tapped into that really kind of appealed to you, or something you can pin on when we're playing?
Yeah, it's a really good question.
His hair.
His hair.
I think it was.
Yeah. Well, I had to dye my hair and straighten it first of all, but I always try to think of. It doesn't matter if you're playing a hero or a villain. You have to try and find a way to get your arms around it, and make it personal to you. And I always wanted to play Loki as a sort of misguided, misunderstood anti-hero rather than a villain. I think in the comics all of those aspects are there. His psychological complexity, his intelligence, his pain, essentially, his sadness and grief at his confusion that he doesn't belong anywhere in the universe in which he finds himself. And I don't know if I don't know quite how I tap into it, I suppose. It's one of those things that's quite mysterious, and it happens because of what other actors are doing. It happens because of what Chris is doing and Tony Hopkins, and really it's about an extension of compassion for the predicament. So I try and boil it down to something very simple. What does Loki want? He wants the love and affection and pride of his father. How is he going to get it? And it's just somehow inhabiting the power of those very extreme feelings and going there in your own mind. You know, what would it be like to experience the truths that Loki learns in the course of the film? Like, what would it be like to be told that information? Yep. And I don't want to give out too many spoilers, but there are a few things that would be, that's always the big acting question, is what would it actually be like to be there?
Okay. And Jaimie, your character is essentially like the lone female. He was essentially a boys' club before the other characters you with. So what's it like roughing it up with the guy like Chris and Tom and also like someone like Ray Stevenson?
Oh, Ray. Don't ever try and high-five Ray, ever. No, it was a lot of fun. I grew up with 4 brothers, so it was, it came naturally, and we all trained together for a couple months before we started shooting, which helped everybody bond together. Like, he's incredibly flexible, like ridiculously flexible. And then it was always funny trying to watch Chris do these like yoga movements, because he could bench press, like an entire house. But if you ask him to get into a certain yoga pose, it's just like awkward, and it must hurt him. And then for me, I can run fast. I don't know. But it was great to learn each other's, weaknesses and strengths, and it sort of became very family-ish. And it was
amazing
great.
what Jaimie does, by the way. I don't know if I would hold my own in the same way in a group of 5 women. I think I would just be really confused and start crying. So hats off.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Incredible.
The Thor movie is like a precursor to the big Avengers film that's coming next year after. Was there any type of pressure on the set felt that this is like essential that this film succeeds in regards to how the Avengers film is coming?
I don't think so. I think Kenneth Branagh would be the first in line to refute that as a claim, and I think he was so behind Thor as a standalone story. He had such a personal connection to the comic book and to the character, and was so passionate about making a really, really terrific piece of entertainment and a great piece of cinema. And in a way, he left the sort of the bigger questions of the Marvel universe to Kevin Feige, and occasionally, he would be told that certain things had to be a certain way because later down the line, this was going to happen. But I don't think that affected him really. I think he was concerned with his own story.
And there are some tidbits to say Loki might be back for the Avengers. Do you know anything about it?
I don't know. It's one of those ongoing conversations I'm having with the Marvel producers about, if Loki comes back, how does he come back? Where does he come back? And I think we probably haven't seen the last of him, but Joss Whedon has such a big job on his hands anyway. He's got 8 superheroes to put in one film. It's like bringing together a fleet of ocean liners and having them all set sail together. It's a pretty hard task on its own. So yeah.
Well, that was my last question. Thank you very much for your time, and
Great.
congratulations.
Thanks. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Awesome.